So I guess we'll start with a little bit about me. Where should I start? So I've probably been doing this for like 10 years or so. I used to work at an ad agency a while ago. I hated it and realized that I just hate advertising. Then I worked at a number of startups. Most of them failed. I worked at one startup that was actually quite successful. It's called Discover. We had like 3 million users. It eventually failed though. And what I learned from that was, failure is okay, but you need to learn to reflect and look back and see how can I learn from that? Thanks. Then after that, I spent some time in San Francisco. I worked for a tech company in San Francisco. I learned a lot about lean research. That was the first time I really got exposed to the research world. And that was, just doing just enough to learn that a little bit more. So keep pushing us forward, just get us to that next step. Look, after that, I applied at Google X. I was going through the recruitment program there. That was hard as fuck, man. I chickened out on that and moved to Melbourne and worked at a company called Xero. There's some Xero guys over there. And that was cool because I didn't know anything about accounting, and I had to learn how to, get familiar with a new space and be actually comfortable knowing that I don't know anything at all. And then we did massive discovery pieces. So I was familiar with the lean approach, but then we did massive large scale discovery pieces. That was really good. After that, I moved to Australia Post, and I really like Australia Post because it's a 200-year-old organization. And for the first 150 years, business has been great. Letters have been booming, then technology changed. And computers came out, phones came out, SMS, emails, the internet. Letters decline, but then online shopping, right? It's a thing. Parcels go up. But the company had to learn to change and adapt and shift. And that's in a constant state that we're in. There's other threats, Amazon, Uber, Sendle. And so we constantly have to reevaluate our own processes and get better. And I really respect that from a big enterprise like Australia Post. So that's a little bit about me. And so I went to UX Australia last week, and the best talks, I think, had a personal story. So I thought I'd kick this one off with a personal story of mine. Oh, okay, sorry. It's probably as I'm sitting. Yeah, okay. Oh, cool. Personal story. Now I can see more of you, and now I feel way more nervous. So, yeah, I'm a designer, obviously, and I'm a designer because I like to change things, and that's good for me because society has built these boxes that I don't really fit in. And here's a box, and that box was called school. It's the education system, and I clearly don't fit in that box. I challenged my teachers. I reframed assignments. I put people into situations that I weren't really comfortable with. And the way my teachers changed, they dealt with that was they just put me into a slightly bigger box, but it was still a square box. It was a remedial class that I spent most of my time in. All through, I spent, repeated years. I bullied kids. I skipped class. I was frustrated with this box that they put me in. I sold cigarette packets out of my locker. I wasn't doing great. And so that was the frustration that had built up inside of me because of this box that I wasn't fitting in. And I eventually said, fuck it. And I pulled myself out of that box, and I totally removed myself from it. I went to a lot of parties, and the best parties had these cool graphics, these posters and these projections on the walls. And I got really into the whole, how do we make these graphics? And I spent late nights like learning Photoshop and trying to make these graphics. And because, if I was making the flyers for the artwork, I just got free entry into the thing, and that really worked out for me. And so I did that for a couple of years when I was in high school. I'd spend late nights emailing promoters, and there was this one guy, I actually flooded his inbox with so many attachments and emails. It shut down his inbox and he couldn't receive any more emails. He was not too happy about that. But what I learned there was my frustration. I shaped it and I pushed it into motivation to do something different, to do life differently. By the time I was 19, I was pumping out a couple of flyers for different things, and a clothing company sponsored an event, hired me as their graphic designer, and I worked for a clothing label for a couple of years. The guy that owned that clothing label was the very guys I shut down his inbox a couple of years earlier. And what that showed me is I can shape my box, I can change things. I became successful. I created an opportunity outside of the box that was given to me. And so today we're going to talk about boxes, and we're going to talk about stars. We're going to talk about how to turn our frustrations into opportunities and how to create new things. That's frustration. I'm just going to have a drink. Frustration's an energy that builds up inside of you. It's a result of seeing things differently. It's a result of a new perspective on your box. So what happens if we leave this inside of us? It really builds up. It becomes really negative. It can push us away from our teams. We can be seen as defiant, or we can be seen as rogues. And rogues are powerful because they have this momentum. They have this energy inside of them, this frustration. And if it's not applied properly, we become really serious forces of nature, and we can be seen as working against our teams, and that's not what we want. That's not our intention. So we need to learn to take that energy outside of us and to put it into a new opportunity and to put it into something positive. So the way that we can do that is taking this energy that's inside of us, this frustration, and holding it out in front of us and kind of shooting it up like a flare. And you do that with communication and escalation and working with your managers and working with your mentors. And when you put this energy, this frustration out inside of you and put it out in the open, then people around you can help shape it and they can help turn it into something positive. And that's something that's been really beneficial for me in the past. And when it's out in the open, when we can put our frustrations out there, we can start to learn what it is and what's this new perspective that we see and how can we shape this into a star. And I've seen a really good example of that when a former design director of mine, whenever he was frustrated with something, whenever he saw a new opportunity, he would put together a presentation. It was only a few slides long, and sometimes it just had a few words in it. Sometimes it just had a diagram or two. But it always started with two simple words: imagine if. And it'd say, imagine if, blah, 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 blah. But when you start with imagine if, it opens up your audience's minds. It makes them way more receptive to whatever you've got to say. Then they can give you feedback and they share their perception of this energy that you've put out there. And then you begin to understand it a little bit more. You see their perspectives, and then you can work together on how to shape it into a star. And so once we've got these stars, once we've built these stories and we've shared them with our team, and we're working on it together, we need to put them up in the open and make them public for the rest of our organization to see. And a good example of that is actually Sylvain. He's right over in the corner there. We worked together, and we were working at a company, and at the time they were building a design system, and a design system is just another box that we all have to live in, another thing that we have to work with. And he was working on a product that kind of didn't fit in this box. He's a very strong designer, and he was challenging this box and thought, there must be a better way. I've got opportunities I see a different way of doing this thing. And instead of, you know, keeping it inside of him, we talked about it, we pushed it out into the open, he shared his ideas with the team, and eventually ended up shipping this product that was celebrated by its users and also the leadership team. And they pointed to this piece of work that was done, this star, and they said, this is a great example of what we can do. And so what that really showed me is that I can reshape my boxes. I don't have to live with them. We have control over them. And that inspired me and other people in our organization to reframe our opportunities and to live more passionately. And when you have passion within a team, it's super powerful and it's super contagious. And so what we have here is boxes and complacency. Boxes are great because they get us from A to B, protect us, their workflows, their processes, their, you know, things that we live and work with every day. But if we don't question and challenge them, we're always going to be stuck with the same boxes, and we can be stuck with our frustration, and that doesn't lead to anything better. That just leads to a shitty existence, right? And so we need to empower ourselves to challenge our boxes and to know that we can reshape them. We can even remove them if we want to. So a question that some of you might be asking is, how do I go rogue? How can I challenge my boxes? What are some things? So I've got a couple of things that really helped me. Seeking new perspectives definitely helped me. So understanding what are the different angles of this box? What are the different what are the different ways to frame it? And Hayden over in the back there recently wrote a thing about the design bubble, and my computer's gone to sleep, so I can't read the quote. But he wrote a thing about the design bubble, and it basically says that we need to look at our own. A bubble is the buildup of our own mental models and opinions and everything that we think we know. And if we don't seek outside perspectives on it, we'll never get better. And so something that I put to you is, if you think you know something, even like me, I like black, I wear black t-shirts. I might ask someone else, do you like black? Like, this is something that I think everyone likes, black. I might get their feedback or their opinion, and that's a different perspective on this box that I have in my own mind. Another thing is seeking clarity. I carry paper and a Sharpie with me pretty much everywhere I go. Whenever I step into a meeting at AusPost, it could be 16 people in the room, they could be senior managers, I don't care. Whenever I hear something I don't understand, I'll write it down on a piece of paper and I'll pause the meeting and I'll say, hold up, guys. What do we mean by this statement? And I'll underline everything that I think is ambiguous about it. Because if I don't understand it, there's someone else in the room that probably doesn't understand it too. And so I feel like if we seek clarity, we're helping everyone else around us and we're understanding these boxes. And when we're clear on what our boxes are, we become clear on how to improve them. So I want you to know that nothing is carved in stone. Nothing we create, not the people that we work with, not our own behavior. We can change our boxes and we can reshape them and turn them into new things. I want to leave you with a couple of things. For the rogues, I want you to, have the courage to put your energy out into the open, talk about it, seek feedback, seek clarity, seek understanding, seek new perspectives. When you shape your stars, you bring passion to your team. You just have to work out in the open. And for anyone who creates boxes, make sure that your boxes, they can change shape if they need to. Bring your rogues close, create a safe environment for them to work in. Be open with feedback, like make it safe and welcome communication. Because if we work together and we all push each other and we make it safe and open and honest, if we turn our frustrations into opportunities, we're just going to have better boxes for everyone else. So I've done this talk a couple of times, and every time I've done it, I've got a bunch of questions that have kind of come back. And so feel free, I want to hear what kind of questions you guys have, but here's a couple of Kickstarters if any of you are interested in. So it's question time. You go. I might start with a couple of these. A question I got is defiance versus rogue. I looked up the dictionary definition of rogue and defiance, and it turns out that by the dictionary, the term rogue is actually not that great. It's not what I agree. It's not what I thought it was. You're a bit of a dick if you're a rogue, and it's not my intention. The definition of rogue that I go by is more so like the Star Wars definition, where you're they've romanticized the term rogue. And the difference between defiance and rogue, if you go rogue, you're kind of working towards a shared objective. In Star Wars, they wanted to take down the Empire, right? And Rogue One, they just found a different way to do that. They went around. They still went to the same objective and they still took it down. But as a defiant person, you're just doing something totally separate. You're not working towards a shared objective. You're just being a dick. And so that's the difference between defiance and rogue, if anyone had that question. Anyone in the crowd have anything?
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. That's amazing. Shobani mentioned that I should meet Chris for coffee, and I think we originally sat down and had a chat for about an hour, and I walked away going, wow, what a brilliant mind. So thanks for sharing your stories and ideas with us.
Sure. Anytime.
Any questions for Chris?
This guy's got one.
Hey, how does going rogue work in something as massive as like Australia Post and its enterprise?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we're fortunate because in my team, and I can't take any of the credit for this, Shobani and people before me can take credit for this. They actually built a lot of trust, and I feel that's the foundation for any positive relationship. And you can earn trust by understanding other people's perspectives. What motivates them? What motivates what do they want to get to? What does the business want to get to? And if you understand that, then you can shift your energy into that direction. You can reframe it. And so once we've earned trust, we then agree that we have this shared objective and we want to get there. It's just a matter of how we get there. And no one cares how you get there as long as you get there. And so you just map out, we can go this way. And if that doesn't work, we'll try a different way and we'll go there. You just have to agree that this is the objective that we want to get to. And this is the box that we kind of have to work with. And then you can start to change that box and see what works for you. Anyone else?
Awesome. One question over here from
no, at the back. Go for it.
Simon.
Cheers. Australia Post has got such a history and legacy, things there, but you could have a bit of a drawback that everyone thinks they know what it is. So what kind of things did you do to create curiosity about it?
Yeah, that's a tricky thing. When you did you say create curiosity? Yep. I guess there's two parts. When you get in a room and you get in a meeting with people and I work with way smarter people than me, it can be quite intimidating. And I think if I can just communicate with them and reassure them that I want the best for them, I just need to understand what is it that you want? What is it that you know? I'll soak that in, and then I'll create a story around what's another way that we can get there. And that comes down to the imagine if kind of thing, where we want to reframe something differently. And imagine if we can do blah, blah, blah is me thinking, I know everything that you know. I've soaked in all of that. I've understood your objective, and maybe we can just reframe it and work towards it. The curiosity part, what was it about curiosity?
Because it's because there's such when you're dealing with something that's got like an organization that's got such a legacy that people already think they know what it is.
Yeah.
How do you reinvest part of that curiosity about it?
Yeah, I think it just comes with asking a lot of questions. Why do you think it's this way? Why is your box square? what happens if we make it circular? What happens if we change this thing? It's a lot of questions.
Awesome. Over here.
Excuse me. Thanks. Hi, Chris. So as you said that before, you were working at this startup that had quite a good number of
Yeah, Discover.
yeah, and you also worked in some place in San Francisco.
Yep.
How, like, when we hear Australia Post, there's this to some of us, there's a cliche image of the kind of company it is.
Yeah.
What appealed you to like leave all these other companies that you were working with and then go for Australia Post?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I was frustrated with the place that I was working at the time. People evolve, and Millie, you mentioned this at dinner the other day. People evolve, and when you work through a role, you know, we change and the companies change, and maybe that's not the best fit for you anymore. And then you have to kind of renegotiate that thing that you both thought you were. And sometimes it's the best just to try somewhere else. And so I wanted to I knew what I wanted out of my workplace. I wanted a place that worked faster, and I wanted a place that was comfortable with change, because I was super into the Basecamp team and Jason Fried and Intercom, and I was reading all their stuff, and I was like, I really love that approach. And so I was looking for that, and I thought I was going to go to like a startup again, and maybe somewhere smaller, it's just more well-funded. But then I got a delivery, and I picked it up from a parcel locker, and the experiences was so good that I was like, holy shit, I actually called Sylvain, I think. I was walking home from the parcel locker. I was like, I just picked up a delivery from this thing, a box, and it popped open, and I opened it with a QR code. And they sent me a text message, and I was like, holy fuck, I'm excited about deliveries. I got excited about a postal service. It blew my mind. I never thought that would happen. And then it's serendipity. Like 2 weeks later, I got an email from someone at Ozpost, and they're like, yo, come in, check it out. And I did, and I just asked them, because I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted a place that was fast-paced and kind of changed. And I had a lot of good conversations, and I knew the questions I wanted to ask, and I knew the kind of responses that I was looking for. I just got lucky. It turned out that Post is actually a very mature organization when it comes to software development. And it blew my mind. And everyone that I talked to about Ozpost is still like, I don't believe you, but it's actually quite impressive. I sound like a groupie, I'm sorry, but yeah. They're just, oh yeah, we don't have red ones, I don't think.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Cheers. Yes.
I was interested in the story about the design system and making a decision to step outside of it for a particular project. I think that's particularly relevant to a design ops meetup.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how we can tell when a design system is helping us and when it's hindering us?
Yeah, okay. The design system's always going to help you, and it's always going to hinder you. You just need the processes to allow change in that design system. And so I work on the design system team at Post, and we've developed a process to allow change. There is always going to be change, and you just need to be comfortable with it. So once you're uncomfortable with this system, there's a series of questions that you can be asking yourself. Do we need to change it? What happens if we don't change it? Does this even need to change the design system? Do we just go rogue and not even push it back into the design system? Is there something that already does the thing that we want it to do? And then, okay, yep, we agree that we need to change the design system. So what is the process of changing it safely, and how do we change it in this one place? Is it an experiment, or do we change it everywhere at once? Just be comfortable with change and figure out the best way to change. That's all I got for you.
Awesome. Probably got time for one more question.
Millie's got one.
Millie.
One of the things you said before about going rogue and how you can go rogue, to paraphrase you, if you know what the objective is, going rogue can kind of be like, I know you think you want to do it this way, but how about this wacky idea?
Yeah.
How do you get there? Like, in a large organization like Post, where probably a lot of the time when you're talking to people, you're not actually getting the real objective. You're kind of getting like a filtered down objective or like a locally optimized objective and not like the actual objective.
Yep. Develop close relationships with the decision makers. Good thing that when Hayden did when he first started, he had coffee catch-ups with literally everyone, and he developed that relationship. So that's trust. And so when something doesn't make sense to you and you write it down and you underline it, this doesn't make sense. There's ambiguous things in here. I'm not sure if I can actually hit that objective. Go back to the source. Develop a relationship with the source. And if you can't, yeah, it's tough, and timing might not be right. You might have barriers in your way. Maybe your manager is a shitty manager and you can't get to the source. Then you can play a long game and be like, I'm just going to wait it out and wait till my manager's gone. Or I can be better than my manager and replace them. Or I can earn the trust of the person above them. These are all options. Or I can earn the trust of the person above them and make it actually okay for me to go to that person up there. I think it really starts again with trust. Putting in the time to invest in the people around you can get you a very long way. If you understand what people care about and why they make the decisions that they make, it allows you to become more effective. And when you go rogue, you'll be seen as influential and not defiant.
I want to ask one more thing.
Go.
You said when we were hanging out before, if your team doesn't have a rogue, there's something wrong.
Yes.
Can you expand a bit on that and tell us, like, why is a rogue a sign of a healthy team?
Because if you have a rogue and you're able to go rogue successfully and safely, that tells me you have got a passionate team. Everyone cares. We have an extremely passionate team at Post. I get feedback all the time on the work that I do that it breaks the boxes that I thought I had. But that's great because that means everyone cares. And then I forgot what was the rest of the question.
Just why is it a healthy team if you've got a rogue?
Then it's about change, right? So nothing is set in stone, nothing is rigid. And if you have people going rogue and you can actually get change over the line, that's you're halfway there. Like, even Post is 200 years old. Like, they're going to be there forever and they still need to change, and they accept that. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.